But even though there's no Tony Awards this year, we can still celebrate the Broadway season with special guests, critics, not weighing, well, they can weigh in on what they thought of some of the shows that did open this season on Broadway. Also, we'll be asking them some of their favorite shows of all time. We'll be asking them for suggestions on how Broadway theaters can reopen once they are allowed to, and other cool questions to talk with critics from all over the place. Plus, we have a very special two-time Tony-nominated actor guest, Louis J. Stadlin. All of that happening, but let me bring in the first guest of the morning. First time we're doing this whole thing on Zoom. It's going to be wild. I don't know, hopefully it won't be wild. Hopefully it will go really, really smoothly, but who knows? But our first guest is Zachary Stewart. He is the chief critic for TheaterMania.com. He's been on a couple, I think, of our previous Broadway specials here for Dave's Gone By and Total Theater. I'm going to admit him, and I'm hoping he will be talking to us right this second. Oh, and let me get to a gallery view, if I can do that. Welcome, Zachary. So good to see you. How are you?
Oh, it's excellent to see you, Dave. How are you?
Great. You sound great. You look great. And I notice you've got a little cabaret Liza Minnelli poster there from the movie. So you're a theater guy.
He looks down on us like a beloved ancestor from the mantle.
Indeed. Well, you can see our lovely pastiche here behind me of several of the shows that opened this season. So you have elected to speak about the show or two that you most liked that did open in the 2019-2020 Broadway or off-Broadway season. What have you chosen, Zachary?
I'd like to talk about Will Arbery's Heroes of the Fourth Turning, which just very recently won the New York Drama Critics Circle Award for Best Play this year. It was shortlisted for a Pulitzer. I suspect it might have won the Drama Desk Award if those had been revealed last Sunday, but that show was postponed. It could have been The Inheritance as well, frankly, but I think it was between those two. We'll never know. At least we won't know until they reveal the awards. But this play was part of the Playwrights Horizons season. It came in the fall. Playwrights Horizons had an extraordinary season this year. The Pulitzer winner was actually there, and that was A Strange Loop by Michael R. Jackson, a musical. So a really excellent final season for their artistic director, Tim Sanford. And Heroes of the Fourth Turning was a part of that.
Tell us about that play. What was so special about it? What was it about, you know?
Well, so this was about a group of graduates from a small private Catholic university in the mountains of Wyoming, meeting for an impromptu reunion to celebrate the promotion of a favorite professor to president of the university. And these are all young conservatives, very well-read young conservatives. Only one of them is really a supporter of Donald Trump, although they all voted for him because they feared Hillary Clinton more. And it's essentially their perspective on the world and what's happening now and the coming crisis, which they feel, and certainly a lot of people on the left feel, exists as well. And so it's them speaking from that perspective. And what I really loved about this play is these are voices that you don't often hear on the New York stage, specifically off Broadway. You know, we tend to be a more Democratic-leaning group in the New York theater.
No, really?
This is a major revelation. I know, I'm giving away all of the secrets now. And so, you know, the people you tend to see on the theater, they tend to be more like Richard Nelson's Residents of Rhinebeck, which you see, and he's written, I think, about 10 plays for the public theater about liberals in Rhinebeck wringing their hands about the state of the world. And this is very different than that. And what was so thrilling about this is it was one of those plays where people in the audience feel compelled to shout back at the stage. And so much of the drama was between the stage and the audience, you know? There's one character who you can tell she's a young conservative, but she's addicted to Twitter, and this is how she learned how to converse and argue with people, which is essentially in the pithiest, nastiest, meanest way possible. And So she goes in this argument about abortion and why abortion should be illegal. But the way she's arguing it, you know, it's almost from that very social justice-y stand, you know, where she browbeats you into believing what she believes. And people were just howling back at the stage. You could hear they had never heard these kind of talking points before. They were so hoping that if they were going to encounter Republicans on stage, they would be easily dismissed Trump voters.
Right.
And
yeah, that's what
and
makes
so
what kills me is that and we're going to do a Zoom broadcast of Heroes of the was it Turning?
Heroes of the Fourth Turning. It's
yeah.
a clunky title, isn't it?
It is, but I wanted to see it. I didn't get to see it off Broadway, and then they postponed the doing of it on Zoom because of the riots and because they didn't want to do it right this second. But look for it, folks, because it won or was nominated for a bunch of awards, and as you can see, it feels like a very compelling, up to the minute Pulitzer. It was Pulitzer.
It was shortlisted.
Shortlisted for the Pulitzer Prize.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, in the time that we have, Zachary Stewart of TheaterMania, at some point, God willing, we're going to be walking back into theaters, Broadway theaters, even big ones. You wanted to maybe weigh in a bit on how's that going to happen? How are they going to distance everybody 5 chairs away? Are they going to spritz things by drones? What are they going to do?
Well, there's recently been a very widely shared photo from the Berliner Ensemble showing little clusters of chairs, you know, 1 or 2 chairs socially distanced apart in their auditorium. I think some of our more well-financed not-for-profits, the Lincoln Center, the Public Theater, might be able to get away with doing something like this for a season or 2. Broadway absolutely couldn't. Not the way that it's produced right now, right? The profit margins are already thin enough that thinning out the audience that much would make it absolutely impractical. But there was something you mentioned earlier on this call, which was the reading for Heroes of the Fourth Turning, which was a ticketed event on Zoom. It was a ticketed event online, and there were different ticket levels for that. I actually think this is the way that the theater, and Broadway specifically, gets out of this crisis. I've noticed there's a lot more willingness to embrace streaming performances because of COVID-19. This has always been a big hang up in the theater, right? They want people to buy tickets in the theater. They don't want them to be watching it online. But I have to say, you know, I grew up in a family where we didn't have money for theater tickets, right? We couldn't drop $60, $70, $80 a ticket to see the touring Broadway show. So I think for a lot of people, the choice is not between buying a ticket in the theater and buying a cheaper ticket online. The choice is between buying a ticket to see the show and not seeing it at all. So essentially what you do is when you stream a show or provide it online on online video, you know, say for $5 a ticket, right? That's less than the cost of a matinee at a movie theater. You expand your balcony enormously, you know? And so these people are getting maybe not the best experience of seeing a show in a live theater, but they're getting to see it, and they're getting to see a version of it for a cheaper amount. And I don't think that's going to keep people from actually going to the theater and buying the expensive tickets.
So, but do you think maybe then they'll space in the actual theater, and then whatever shortfall will be made up for people 8 times a week logging in to pay for it online? Do you think?
I mean, perhaps.
Yeah.
Perhaps this is something that really needs to be explored, and I think there's been a lot of parties, producers, unions that have been very reticent to take this leap into the future. I will hand it to. We think of opera as somewhat musty and old, but they've been way ahead of the curve in this, especially the Metropolitan Opera. Met HD broadcasts out to the entire world. I have friends in Malta that go and see productions at the Metropolitan Opera here on the Upper West Side in a movie theater. And it's because they do that.
Yeah, except that the Met is millions and millions and millions of dollars in debt. Commercial producers, you know, unless they're really altruistic, aren't going to take that shot. You know, the Met, as you said, the institutional theaters may be able to if they've got the funding coming in. That's cool. But I want to remind people that they can read your work, Zachary Stewart, at TheaterMania.com. How are you guys holding?
Not currently. You can read some of my old work. I'm currently furloughed at TheaterMania, as so many Americans are. I mean, there's just not a lot of new theater being produced, so there's little to write about. I'm hoping to return in the fall or perhaps January, if that's when Broadway, they're now saying Broadway will come back in January of 2021. I hope I'll be back on the aisle to write about it then.
I certainly hope so too. But it's certainly a pleasure to have you on our special Tony show. Zachary Stewart. So are you blogging anywhere? Can people reading any of your stuff besides your old stuff on TheaterMania? Or are you
No, I'm not writing about the theater at all. I'm taking a bit of a break, and it's been glorious.
Oh, well, enjoy. And it's been glorious having you on the program. Thank you so much, yes. Zachary Stewart, for being
yes, thank you for having me. Okay. Bye-bye.
Zachary Stewart, ladies and gentlemen, in the neighborhood on the 16th annual Total Theater Broadway special. I should introduce myself. I'm Dave Lefkowitz. That is my darling and adorable wife, Joyce, who reminded me I have this. Thank you. And that's for Zachary Stewart for being so lucid this time of day. As my wife was saying, it's just a marvelous guest.